Name of your company?
I don't have a company.
Explain that to me.
I find a house that I want to buy, I buy it, I fix it up, and I either rent it or I sell it.
And you don't have a company name?
Correct.
So when you buy it and sell it and flip it, it's your own individual income?
Correct. That's right.
And how do you declare that income?
I give all of the income and all the receipts to my tax man, and he generates the tax return.
And how long have you been doing this, Mr. Weingarten?
5 years.
What did you do before that?
I was a title insurance and escrow underwriter.
Who do you live with?
My wife.
Is that a new marriage?
3 years.
Does she work?
No, she is also retired. We are both semi-retired. I use this as a way of earning some money, and she has other ways of earning money.
The defendant is your son, and according to what I read, you rented a house that you owned to him some time ago. When did you move into that house, Mr. Weingarten?
That was approximately October of 2011, Your Honor.
And you had a rent agreement with him. He was paying rent. But then he lost his job and whatever, he wasn't paying rent anymore. And you decided that you needed a few months or 6 months or whatever it was that he hadn't paid rent. He did, in fact, move out of the house, but according to you, he moved out of the house and left the house a disaster. You want him to pay for the repairs to the house because you want to sell. And says he lived there since 2011. There was normal wear and tear on the house, but he certainly didn't leave it in any state that required thousands of dollars worth of repair. When did you move out of the house?
At the end of September 2014.
September of 2000. Did you do a walkthrough with your father before you moved out?
No walkthrough was conducted, Your Honor.
When was the last time your father had been in the house prior to you moving out in September?
He only visited the house maybe once the entire time I was living there, and that was many, many months prior. I would say perhaps 6 prior to me moving out.
Tell me the circumstances of that visit.
He had stopped by to look at it, describe it that way. Our relationship had been strained for some time.
Well, how did you communicate with him about the leaky faucet situation?
Our communication was primarily through telephone and email.
Okay. So you either telephoned him or emailed him. Where was this leak?
It was in the master bedroom bathroom.
Sink, tub, toilet, what?
The faucet was just, it didn't have proper water pressure. It wasn't necessarily leaky, but the pressure was just almost non-existent.
From what?
From what? I'm not sure.
From the bathtub, from the shower, from a sink?
From a sink.
And did your father come alone or did he bring a plumber?
He came alone.
Tell me about the discussion that you had with him.
He stopped by to take a look at it. The pressure wasn't substantial. He said he would have somebody come and fix it. Nobody ever came to fix it, however.
Did you spend any time with him while he was there?
It was a very short visit. I would say perhaps 5 minutes at the most.
When you would visit with your father prior to that, you visited him at his house?
My visits to my father were primarily limited just to retrieving my mail, any just local going-ons. Eventually he stopped inviting me in. He started handing me my mail through the fence, wouldn't let me invite me inside anymore. And then eventually it got to the point where he would just open my mail and then email me a copy. He wouldn't allow me over at all.
Why is that, Mr. Weingarten?
As to why the relationship got strained?
Yeah. It does have to do with this case. I want you to tell me why the relationship, in your view, got strained. Because he says that after a while you weren't inviting him into the house, you were giving him his mail through the gate. Finally, you just sent him copies of it. Why?
I've never gotten over the treatment and the conduct towards my first wife, who died of cancer. I didn't think that was the proper treatment.
By him?
By him.
You thought he was not?
It was different. I wouldn't say it was okay, but I wasn't happy with either of them, but I could not dwell on that. I had to take care of her. And so she died eventually.
In what year?
2011. I was, as you might imagine, beyond grief. I just thought I was going to die. And I knew that if I didn't find another companion.
Oh, that's a good thing you found another companion. Why were you annoyed at your son's attitude towards his mother's illness?
He didn't care. He didn't ask about the progression of the cancer.
Was he living at home?
Yes. Yes, he was.
How old was he?
Well, it was
How
3 years
old are you now?
ago.
I'm currently 27, Your Honor.
So he was 22, 23 when his mother got sick?
Yes, and so she was very sick for 2 years. That was serious time.
So he was 20?
Okay, yeah.
Around 20.
Around there. And so one day he came home and she was lying on the couch, and he went right upstairs, and I got angry because his true feelings came out. Once she died, a couple family members were there, and they were going to take myself and his other brother and his wife out to lunch, and I find that Philip was not there. He went to Big Bear to have lunch. He was just gone. I didn't even know he left. And that was hard for me to take, as you might imagine. I called him up, I told him to get right back here, and he did. And I have trouble handling that kind of conduct. I can't do it.
Gotcha. No, I understand. Just keep two things in mind, Mr. Weingarten. I do understand what you're saying. 20-year-olds are hardly cooked these days, sadly, especially if they had an indulgent mother who, when she was well enough, took care of her two boys like babies. You know, that sometimes happens. And sometimes it's easy. It's an easier emotion to deal with, to be angry, than to really spend the time grieving and letting it go, and the unfairness of an early death of a mate. So I do understand. The only thing that I can say to you about that, and I know that this is preachy, but I really wanted to find out why you were suing him, considering that, all right, I don't care if he left the house, you know, with a whole bunch of macaws and wild animals inside. Ordinarily, you don't sue your child. So I was trying to figure out what precipitated this sense. The only thing that I can say to you, just between you and me, your wife probably wouldn't like it. His mother would feel better looking down and say, you know what, forgive him. He was young, stupid, selfish, all those things. If everything that you say is true, young, stupid, selfish, full of himself, didn't get it, didn't understand it, all of the things that a 20 and 21 and 22-year-old really you understand, having had them. But she would say, you know what, he's your selfish, stupid, head in a cloud kid, and it would. Okay, well, this is just a bunch of marijuana on the floor and some water stains. Is that what's here?
There are holes in the wall.
What were the holes in the wall for, sir?
There were several pre-existing holes where they had tacked on, the previous owners had tacked on, you know, perhaps frames or whatnot.
No.
I've never seen that, Your Honor. At the time of moving out, the house was in good condition, and, I mean, there weren't any holes.
Tell me about your marijuana growing, which you seem to acknowledge in the house. Were you growing it in the house or outside?
In the house, Your Honor. In
the house. And when you grow marijuana in the house, you have to have sufficient lighting. Is that right? And when you installed those, you had to put them through the walls?
Correct.
Right. Did you take up the carpet?
I'm sorry?
Did you take up the carpet? That would
in one room,
yes
I did
remove
the carpet, yes, Your Honor.
That would either be a yes or a no.
Yes, Your Honor. In a portion of the house, I did.
Just a second. You took up the carpet. And what did you, of the carpet?
Bare floor.
Bare floor with cement floor?
Correct.
Cement floor. And in what room did you take up the carpet to put in the cement floor?
The greenhouse.
You mean your father's house had a greenhouse?
It was a bedroom that was then converted into a greenhouse.
Who converted it?
Myself.
Oh, well, you made it into a greenhouse. It wasn't a greenhouse, it was a bedroom.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Tell me when you...
Weingarten says his son, Philip Weingarten, owes for rent and damages to a house he was renting to him. Jeffrey claims Philip converted a bedroom into a marijuana greenhouse.
Now, did you have your father's permission to make that alteration?
Yes, he had given me...
Show me.
I have no written record of
well,
that
you
agreement.
tell me when your father... Don't believe you, sir. Don't believe you at all.
That's the truth, Your Honor.
Listen, he wasn't crazy about you. We just discussed that. He wasn't crazy about you, and he planned on, at some point, selling this house. Why in the world would he give you permission to destroy it in order to make and sell and grow marijuana?
I used it for my own
I don't
uses.
believe you.
I did not sell it, Your Honor.
Don't believe you. Don't believe you. I assume you have a card that says that there's something wrong with you, that
Yes,
you need
Your
it
Honor.
for medical purposes.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask you what's wrong with you. That's part of the problem with legalizing drugs for people who have medical reasons to use any kind of a drug when it's abused by people who have no medical condition that requires them to use that sort of drug, whatever drug it is. So I don't think...
A cruise to the Bahamas.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I went on a cruise in February.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am.
What part of what do you do for a living don't you understand?
Sorry about that. I'm a truck driver.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a security officer.
How long have you been friends?
I'd say roughly around '09 when we got to know each other.
And where did you get to know each other?
Through the fire department.
What do you do with the fire department?
We just essentially run basic fire calls, assist with EMS.
Volunteer fire?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you still doing that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you work out of the same firehouse?
Different stations.
Did you ever work in the same house?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you stop working at the same?
After May, April.
And when was this cruise that you went on?
It was February 2014.
So you left the firehouse in 2013?
Yes, ma'am.
But you still maintained a relationship with the plaintiff?
Yes, ma'am.
This is what the case is about. You claim he owes you money for a cruise.
Yes, Your Honor.
Total was 5.
Did you know all 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how it came about that you went on this trip with the plaintiff.
He had originally booked 2 rooms on the cruise and stated that somebody had backed out.
When did he tell you somebody had backed out?
It was September.
And the cruise was to take place when?
February 2014.
So he let you know that somebody had backed out that was already prepaid, that he paid for.
Correct.
So he paid for both rooms.
Yes.
The other people were reimbursing you, I assume.
No, no.
Incorrect that you never told him that somebody had backed out?
No, Your Honor. When the first down payment was on it, his name was on it.
Can I see that?
Yes, Your Honor.
That was October 2nd, guest confirmation. Why would he pay for you to go on a cruise?
Well,
What do you mean he offered you to go as well? Now, you have a family?
I don't.
Who do you live with?
Right now, bouncing between 2 different places.
Between where and where?
My parents' house and a friend's house.
But you work.
Yes, ma'am.
And you work.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you very rich?
No, ma'am.
Why would he pay for your cruise?
At the time, I was only making $200, almost $200 every 2 weeks at the job that I was at.
So?
And at the time, the vehicle I had was constantly breaking down. I was constantly putting parts into that. I was constantly paying. He'd stated that it had already been paid for. When I had already told him before, you know, I only had $80 to down pay.
We're talking about October. Your name is on this form from Carnival Cruise Lines from October. The beginning of October, October 2nd, October, November, December, January. That's 4 months' time to go away. He already had other people to go with him, right? You went. Are you a friend of his?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. He already had company. What do you need you for?
I'm not sure.
All right, I'm not sure either. All right, Mr. Campbell, I'm going to come back to you because it's really your burden. Tell me about how this trip came about and tell me about the defendant's contract with you, or although it might be.
Well, us 3 on October the 1st, we're talking about it. Mr. Dodd and Mr. Bethea, we're talking about going. And then we talked about, so we got to lock the price in. I said, I'll go ahead and put the down payment on it and start it. And I knew he didn't have the money.
14 years?
Who do you live with?
Myself. And my son.
Well, that's not alone. She didn't mean that. She meant she lived
2
with you.
sons, I'm sorry.
Do you rent or do you own your home?
I now own it.
Had you rented it before?
My father owned it. He passed away and I now own it.
When did you inherit it?
February of this year.
Where did you live prior to February of this year?
I lived home, I just didn't own it.
Okay, so you've lived in the same home for 14 years.
Yes.
And how long have you known Miss O'Brien?
5 or 6 years?
Would you consider yourselves friends?
Not anymore.
Were you then?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Miss O'Brien, you know why I'm asking those questions, don't you? I'm asking those questions because the incident that surrounds this case happened well over a year ago. And I was curious as to why you delayed in bringing this case for well over a year. And then in your response, you say it's because the defendant, whom you had known for a long time, disappeared.
Yes.
Well, clearly she didn't.
I attempted to. She did leave the area.
No, she didn't. Says when she found out that I was going to serve her, she disappeared, so I wouldn't be able to serve her. It wasn't until June 2014 when she opened the new restaurant I was able to serve her. She's lived in the same house for 14 years. So that's not true, which is not a good way to start off with me. Okay. Now, this is what your case is about. The defendant was a friend of yours, according to you, and also worked for you. And it is your claim that you and your husband went out of town, and it is your claim that the defendant stole a car of yours and had an accident with that car, and you want her car after that for a period of time, and she should not be held responsible for that, because if you had taken the car in at the time, it wouldn't have had as extensive damage as it did. That's pretty much your defense.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of work did you do for her?
She had a contract with a charter school, and so when she would go out of town, I would go in and clean the charter school for her after school let out.
And she would pay you for that?
Yes, she paid me.
Paid you in check or cash?
Cash.
How much?
$12 an hour.
How many times did you go in and clean for her that she paid you for?
Probably 10 or 15.
From what period of time to what period of time?
Probably June or July of 2013 until this incident happened.
Which was what date?
September 13th through the 17th.
That's when you used this car?
Yes.
How did you get possession of the car?
I don't know now. At the time, she just had myself.
So she would tell just you?
Yes, she would
come
tell
and
me
park.
to come.
So there were no other employees?
No, I guess
so
not.
she would tell you, you can leave your car and take my car?
Correct.
Why would you want to take her car instead of your
Because
car?
she keeps the cleaning supplies and the vacuum and everything in her car.
Okay,
so
and how
instead
many-
of wasting time and putting it in my car, I just take her car.
And you did that with her permission?
Yes.
And when she was going out of town last year, you were going to take over the responsibility of cleaning the charter school?
Yes.
And that was by agreement with her?
Yes, and a church.
Now, prior to her going out of town, had you used her car before?
Yes, several times.
What kind of a car is it?
It's a PT Cruiser. I don't know what year.
How many cars do you have, Miss O'Brien? I've used the PT Cruiser in the past. Prior to this incident happening, she would be correct.
Maybe one other time.
I don't care.
Okay.
One out
Yes.
of time?
Yes.
So she had
Yes.
used it before?
Yes, she had.
Okay. Tell me about the accident.
Well, it wasn't really an accident. I was trying to get from point A to point B, and I was using a GPS system, and I hit a pothole or a rock, I'm not sure, but it put a hole in the radiator. So my son, not this son, another son, was with me. We pushed the car to a truck stop where I had the radiator patched, and I have the bill here showing that
I'd like to see
I
that.
paid that. It was only $25 to fix it.
Patched.
It was patched. They fixed the radiator. I drove the car home with no overheating issues. The car was fine.
Well, but a patch doesn't fix it.
They said it did. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic.
I'm not either. Does a
But
patch fix the radiator?
they welded the radiator because it's metal and it had a hole, and then they...
And that was the only thing that was wrong with the car?
Yes.
And then you came home and tell me what you found.
I drove the PT not knowing anything was wrong with it. We drove it 1.4 miles to the school to clean it. It had my supplies
we?
in it. My husband and I. They're
Okay,
that
so you
active.
drove the car a little over a mile.
And as soon as we got halfway there, it was running really, really rough. When I got to the school, I texted Bonnie and said the car was running really, really rough. Didn't hear anything. When we left the school, we drove 2 more miles to the grocery store, and the car stalled out right there. I texted Bonnie again. We need to get home. We barely made it in the driveway, and it stalled out again. My son came out. We had to push the PT Cruiser up about 15 feet uphill, and all the oil just spilled all out.
Okay, so let me understand this. She used the car,
Yes.
returned the car is now back, and you take the PT Cruiser and travel with it for 4 miles, come back, and other than the car, according to you, saying that, gee, the car is riding very rough, you had no indication from looking at the car that it had been in any sort of difficulty.
Did not know.
Right. And you drove it for 4 miles. And then you came back, and then all of the oil came out and whatever. Now, according to your statement, you say, when Bonnie brought the car back the next day, I was shocked. It had obviously been in an accident. Oil was pouring out of it, and it was not drivable. Well, that's not true. You signed it, lost your driver's license. Did you lose your driver's license because of an accident, because of a violation? For what reason?
No, ma'am. I had traffic tickets to pay. That's the reason why I didn't have my license.
So you lost your license because you failed to pay tickets?
Yes, ma'am.
Moving violation tickets?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you lose your license?
I want to say last year.
I'd say last year. Month and year.
Month,
when did
February, the 26th of last year.
And Mr. Morales had been using his car to drive the family around, you, the child, and himself. And at some point, it was decided, according to you, that you wanted your own car.
Yes, ma'am.
You found a car. You weren't going to drive the car because you have no license. But Mr. Morales was going to drive the newer car because the old car had miles on it. Why weren't you going to drive your old car, sir?
It wasn't just the miles. It was she actually had the money at the time to buy her own car. So the agreement.
Yeah, but she didn't.
One time, so she was like, okay, buy the car, and when I get my license, then I can drive it.
But in the meantime, you drove it.
So, yes, sometimes I did.
Did she also drive it?
No, her mother sometimes drove it, but she had a license.
Okay, good. So it was your understanding that you were buying the car, but using her, said to me, you used her money to purchase the car, and when she got her license back, the car was supposed to go into her name. That's what this case is about, because then you had a fight. And when you had a fight, you took the car, because the car was in your name.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the case is about, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But you know the car isn't yours. You know it was never intended to be yours. You expect me to give you possession of a car, madam, without a license.
No, that's not why I came here to.
Well, then what do you want?
I just want my $3,000.
Oh, he's
back.
not going to give you $3,000, madam. You bought this car when? In February of 2013?
14.
February 2014. Okay, so he's going to sell the car, or you can sell the car along with him, and whatever money you get for the car, he's going to give back to you. I'm not going to give you $3,000. The car's not worth $3,000. Why would I give you $3,000? It's ridiculous. As soon as you drive out of a parking lot, you lose the money that you bought for a car, new or used. Who'd you buy it from?
Sammy Autos.
From an auto dealership.
Mm-hmm.
You think he's going to get the same $3,000 for it?
No, ma'am.
Right. So, Mr. Morales, I'm going to fashion an order that you sell the car, or if you want, you can take it back and sell the car. You can't have possession. I can't, as a judge, give you possession of a car that you can't use, because I would be enabling you to break the law. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
Now, so that's going to be the order. You sell the car and give her the money, whatever you get for the car. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
It has to be what we call an arm's length transaction. So I would suggest that you go back to the same place that you bought it from. Maybe you can go together, because I'm sure that you have a child, that you still see each other, or that at some point you have contact. At least you should. Do you see your child?
Yes, ma'am.
How often? Look at me.
Week.
Don't look over there. Look at me.
At least every weekend.
Every weekend. And do you go and pick him up?
Yes.
From whose house do you pick him up? Well, I suggest that maybe you take her mother and the boy, and you all go to the auto place and sell the car. You can get the money. When you get your license back, take the money that you got. Because what you should have done, if you had $3,000 to put together to buy a car, and you had no license, and the thing that prevented you from getting a license was that you hadn't paid moving violations, that's what you told me, right? I would have taken the $3,000 and paid off the violations so that I could have a legal license before I got a car that I couldn't drive.
Yes,
Wouldn't
ma'am.
that have been smarter?
Before I bought the car, I did pay off my tickets. I just rushed to buy the car. I paid
Well,
the
yeah,
tickets.
but you still don't have a license. It's almost a year. So there has to be another reason why you don't have a license if you paid off the tickets. You want to tell me what the reason
I have
is?
to get insurance, and it's a process. It's expensive. I have to make sure I can make that payment monthly. It's a lot, so I have to tax
Well,
money.
that's what I'm saying to you, madam. Get all your ducks in a row before you buy a car. So he's going to sell the car, right?
Yes.
And he's going to give you the money for the car, because you're going to have a long relationship because you have a child together, so you have to do the right thing. I'm here to tell you what the right thing to do is. You're going to sell the car, give her the money that you get. Maybe you'll get $2,000 for it, but you go together, so you'll see he's not committing a fraud, right? And then make sure you have insurance. Make sure then you can pay for the car, because the reason that you don't have a license is not because you don't have insurance. There are a lot of people who have driver's licenses. Do you want to proceed with your counterclaim? That's what your counterclaim is about. You say you had a fight and she went and she used your car, your old car, not the car that she bought, but your car for batting practice. And you want her to pay for the damage on the car.
Yes, ma'am.
You remember when that happened?
It happened in, I think, the sixth month.
Couldn't have been too important to you, Mr. Morales, if you don't even... I mean, you're here. You filed a counterclaim. I would at least remember when the counterclaim happened, Mr. Morales.
It happened on the 6th month, second day of 2013.
14.
June of 2014?
Yes.
You want to tell me, Miss Smith, what happened in June of 2014?
I can most definitely tell you what happened.
Listen, don't give me the whole, I don't want the whole gory
Yes.
story. Did you have a fight?
Yes, we did.
What time of the day or night did you have a
It
fight?
probably was 12 o'clock at night.
And your little boy is home?
Yes, we was outside. He was inside the house. With his car, I did.
With what?
With my phone.
So you went like this to the side of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that all you did?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that all you did?
Yes,
You took a big
ma'am.
side. Okay, you have a picture of that scratch?
Yes, but she did more than that. She also kicked the side of the car, the front of the car. She was drunk that night and beat it up a lot. And I also got an estimate.
How old a car is it?
Huh?
Ha, is not an answer. How old a car is
it's a 2005 Chrysler 300.
Did you buy it new or used?
It was used.
And when did you buy it?
I bought it in 2000 night, and she busted my head open and stuff at the same time.
Just a second. You're not suing for busting your head open. You're only suing for money owed for car damage. Okay, she scratched up the car pretty well. It has to be totally repainted. How much?
The estimate I got for that was $3,559.94. Plus, also that night she had took my keys and my cell phone and ran in the house, which I called the police and stuff, and they said, she told them that she didn't have it, but she just did it in front of me, so I had to actually tow my cars away, which I got the receipts for that. I had to tow my car away that night.
Well, you'd actually tow away both cars.
He did tow away both cars. He said
That's okay. He can't leave you that car because the car is in his name. He's liable for it. He could lose everything if you decided to get behind the wheel of that car as an unlicensed
for the return of her car. Alexander is countersuing for the repairs he's made to the vehicle.
Yeah, that's why you're not getting the car back. It's going to get sold, and I suggest that you're going to use some of this money to take care of your hissy fit because you damaged his car substantially, and you had no right to do that. Absolutely none. So I'm dismissing your case other than the order that I'm going to craft that instructs the two of you to go together and sell the car to the same place probably where you bought it from, unless you can both agree on where else to sell it. But on the counterclaim, I'm awarding you what you request, $3,000. Mr. Damer, the defendant is your former son-in-law. He and your daughter share a child. He has primary physical custody of the child. So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you legally divorced?
Yes, Your Honor.
When were you divorced?
July of 2009.
And how long have you had primary custody of your daughter?
The final paperwork was signed.
He actually got a
Car.
co-sign. Yes, ma'am.
You co-signed on a car?
Mm-hmm.
And both of your names were on the title?
Yes, ma'am.
But the agreement was that Mr. Poling was going to make the payments, take care of the insurance, because for all intents and purposes, so you were no longer working for Mr. Damer. But you continued to make remained, as it should have remained, insured.
No, Your Honor. The insurance lapsed in October of 2013. I was unable to provide roof over my child's head, so I let the insurance lapse in order to do that.
In what month and year was the car flooded out?
It was October 31st, 2013 to bring that with me and dropped on his property.
By whom?
By a tow company, Elite Towing.
And where is the car now?
It's still in the same exact spot that it was dropped off.
How much is owed on the car?
$13,500.
I've got paperwork right here that says the balance is $12,479.11.
Who's supposed to pay that?
Me, Your Honor.
Right, because you didn't have the insurance.
Jennifer Anderton is suing her former friend, James Sorensen, for personal training and a fraudulent investment.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2125, Anderton versus Sorensen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Anderton, your case against the defendant is twofold. First, you claim a loan to him in the amount of $10,000. And while he doesn't deny that you gave him $10,000, it is his defense that this was not a loan, but an investment in a project that went south. It went south because somebody conned him, and thus you were conned as well. Somebody took off with the money. The second part of your lawsuit is that Mr. Sorensen is a trainer of some sort, a personal trainer, fitness trainer, and you retained him to put you on some sort of a regimen of both diet and exercise. And you paid him in advance. He wasn't forthcoming with all of the training sessions he was supposed to give you became unavailable. You want a refund of some of that money. So the first thing I'm going to deal with in your lawsuit is the $10,000 exchange of money. If I find that that, in fact, was a loan or was fraudulently entered into as a result of being duped and being a dope, then I'm going to give you back the money. Then I don't have to get to the training because that's the limit of my jurisdiction. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay, great. How did you meet him?
I met him on a dating site, actually.
When?
Early June 2021.
Did you date?
We befriended each other. And after our first meeting, that is when I had just come off of a ventilator of 10 days. I was a nurse, contracted COVID. He actually came to my home and said, I could really help you get back to where you were. I needed rehab.
Okay, so after the first meeting, you were not dating?
No.
Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
And that was in June of 2021?
Yes.
When did you, Mr. Sorensen, tell Ms. Anderton about this investment opportunity?
It was about a month into...
So 4 weeks later?
Right.
4 weeks later, you became close enough to discuss with her a business opportunity?
Yes.
And did you discuss this business opportunity with her in her home or over the phone?
In her home.
So I want you to tell me your version of exactly what you told her.
So I had a friend come to me and...
You had a friend whose name is?
His name is Scott.
Scott what?
I can't remember his last name.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
If it's true, then it didn't happen. If it's true that you can't remember his last name, it's because he doesn't exist.
Oh, he does exist.
Oh, sir, you didn't give all that money to somebody whose last name you don't know. I want you to understand that. Then you're looking at me and saying I must have stupid written on my forehead. You don't look like a stupid man.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you look like you could be a cunning man, but you don't look like a stupid man. So if Scott doesn't have a last name, he didn't exist. I want you to tell me that's in my brain. In my brain is if you can't come up with a first and last name of somebody that you gave thousands of dollars to, he didn't exist.
Okay, in your mind.
Keep going.
I'm not going to keep going and dig any holes. I'm just telling you what the facts are.
No, those aren't facts, sir. That's a fantasy. You know, you're not mentally challenged in any way, are you?
No.
I want to tell you, if I told my 9-year-old grandchild who asked me for $100 because she wanted to invest it with a friend, I would say, what's the friend's name? I don't know. See, I'm not giving you $100 to invest with somebody whose name you don't know, because I'm absolutely positive that if you said that to her, she would have said, well, what's this person's name? I want you to tell me now, Mr. Sorensen, what was the investment?
It was for Happy Pills.
It was for what?
Happy Pills.
Don't look at me.
Happy? Did you say Happy Pills?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about it. Tell me what you told her. You want to invest in Happy Pills. And
yes.
What she'd say to you? She'd say to you, I'm a nurse, you know, so I'm an educated person. What's wrong with you? Okay, keep going. Keep going. I want to invest in Happy Pills.
Right.
Your friend Scott.
It was a friend of a friend. His name was Scott. Okay, and he introduced me to him and said that, hey, he went.
No, you mean Scott introduced you to somebody else?
No, my friend introduced me to Scott. I didn't know his last name, but we knew that he was in the industry.
Okay, so your friend introduced you to Scott.
Yes.
What's your friend's name?
His name is John. I promise.
Where does he live?
He lives in Salt Lake.
What's his telephone number?
I have no idea what his telephone number is.
Just a second, get out your phone and tell me what your friend's telephone number is. Everybody has their friend's number in their phone.
I don't know what his telephone number is.
Then you see why I don't believe you, sir? Do you understand why I'm having a problem with your story?
It's okay.
Do you understand why I'm having? So a friend whose number you don't have in your phone wanted to introduce you to somebody whose name you don't know to invest in Happy Pills. And this is what you told her? No, I'm asking you a question. Is this what you told her? I have a friend.
This is what I told her.
John, I have a friend, John, who knows a guy, Scott, who has this company that's going to make Happy Pills. I just want to know if that's what you're trying to tell me that you told this woman.
I am. It's okay. I don't know why she would make up that story that
No. She's not making up the story. You're making up the story.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong about this, I actually don't feel badly, sir, because
Jennifer Anderton claims her former friend James Sorensen owes her for a fake $10,000 investment.
Okay, keep going.
You know what happy pills are?
I assume that they make you happy.
Right. Yeah, they are. It's Molly.
I assume that they make you happy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. And so he went around to festivals and he sold Molly there.
He sold what?
Molly.
Molly's.
MDMA. It's an illegal drug.
Oh, okay. So you told her you wanted her to make an investment with you with a big return on your money.
We talked about this for a long time.
Who did?
Me and...
You couldn't have talked about it for a long time, sir. You only knew her 4 weeks.
Okay.
You only knew her 4 weeks. Tell me about this $10,000. Did you take it out of a savings account? Do you have that from the bank?
Yeah.
I'd like to take a look at it. You want to tell me, Miss Anderson, the circumstances surrounding you transferring $10,000 to him?
He approached me saying that he needed a hard money loan for his business. He had an e-commerce business with supplements. His father and mother had given him the loans in the past, for the past 5 years, and they've gotten a good return. It was a for sure deal. He goes around and this is their festival project time. They make a lot of money doing this.
What does he do?
For supplements.
So he sells supplements?
Yes.
And it was his business? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Did he ever mention a guy, Scott, to you?
No.
It was his business?
Yes.
And he said that his parents had helped him out in the past, had invested with him in the past. So now I understand a little bit better. I see the withdrawal for $10,000. So tell me why he needed a hard money loan.
To buy the product to take to these festivals and...
Sell them.
Sell them, yes.
Okay.
So he needed it for product.
And when did he tell you that he was going to return this money?
Within a week or two. That it was a week or two of festivals. This was the busy season. He does this every year, and this is a for sure return. And if I did this much amount of money, $5,000, this is how much I'd get back. If I did $10,000, it would be a $15,000 return for me. And I'm like, wow, I could pay off my student loans. I could, yes, do a lot with that.
Okay, so to synthesize what you told me, he told you that this was an investment in his company.
A loan.
A loan, excuse me. A loan for his company for products so that he could go out, sell them for the next several weeks,
Correct.
And you would get a return of 15% on your money.
50%. So a 10...
50? 50? Sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the company.
The Venmo transfer of $2,000 was to him in June?
June 16th of 21.
And a withdrawal of $8,000.
Same day.
Okay. Now, where did you put that money, sir?
I gave it to Scott.
Okay. Okay. I want to tell you, Mr. Sorensen, you have parents who gave you money?
They have in the
Just a
past,
second.
not as you
have parents that gave you money.
They did not ever give me money for my business, ever.
What did they give you money for?
Christmas? They never financed for me for anything in my life. Okay. Nothing.
Oh, then you lied
about. I don't know why she would make up that story that my parents gave me.
No. She's not making up the story. You're making up the story.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong about this, I actually don't feel badly, sir, because then you're the dope that got duped.
Oh, absolutely. I know.
Then, just a second. That if you gave money to John, to Scott, then you're the dope that got duped because they were your friends. That's all I have to tell you.
I understand.
That's all. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $10,000. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I think it was fair.
I think that was a fair judgment.
We both understood what we were getting into.
No, not until after like 3 or 4 months, and I think he brought that up in fear of me going to the police.
Time to part ways, and definitely learning curves on both ends.
Don't do silly things. It was definitely a learning curve.
I'm glad that things happened the way they did.
Something I'll never do again. Be a little more careful with your money and your investments, and don't trust everybody. I'm too trusting.
I just find it very funny that his entire business venture, was selling illegal drugs at festivals. That was the only plan. That was the whole venture. There was no...
That's really what he said.
Whether it was Scott, whether it was John, whether it was
But that
Joe.
was the business plan. That's Happy Pills. Thank you, by the way, for explaining what that was to me.
I didn't understand at first either, but when he said Molly at festivals, it's like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I'm pretty sure that's not a business.
Right.
So I'm glad she got her money back.
Me too. Me too. It was ridiculous.
There was a couple dopes getting duped in that.
Yeah. Case 21-24, McPherson versus Hall. All parties, please step forward.
Gerald McPherson is suing his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, for money she received during their relationship.
Mr. McPherson,
Yes.
how old are you, sir?
40.
What kind of work do you do?
Home care aid?
Independent, or do you work for a company?
Home care aid agency.
For an agency?
Yes.
How long have you been working for them?
About a year now, but I've been doing home care for about 3 years.
Prior to working for them the past year, and you're still working for them, is that right? Was there a period of time when you were unemployed?
Not more than maybe 3 weeks, but since I know Ms. Hall...
No, I don't want to know about Ms. Hall.
No, I'm telling you my employments that since I've lived in her residence, I've always worked. I worked at the zoo, Census Bureau.
Don't try to think ahead of me.
Okay.
There was a period of time in 2020, according to you, that you became homeless and were living in a shelter.
Yeah, that...
And that was in what month in 2020?
In June. So if I can explain the situation. I was living in a house that a slumlord wasn't doing the repairs. So I ended up forcing his hand, him selling the property, and the new landlord and my...
Could you look at me when you're talking?
I'm sorry. The new landlord and my other ex, they kept the property. I moved out. I went to a shelter because I didn't want nothing to do with her or the...
You're talking about her?
No, ma'am.
Well, then don't keep pointing to her. I'm asking you...
I'm just pointing in general. I'm not pointing at her.
You actually pointed
I'm sorry.
to her. When you were in the shelter, were you employed?
Yes, for the Census Bureau,
Okay.
doing the census. I was actually out in the field knocking on doors. I was an enumerator.
So you were not working in home health care, you were a census taker.
At that time, yes.
And did you have a child living with you?
Yes, well, not in the shelter, no. I could not have my daughter in the shelter.
How old is your daughter?
10.
And where is her mother?
She's deceased.
Where was your daughter living when you were in the shelter?
With my mother.
Is she living with you now?
She's been with me since June.
In a new apartment?
Yes, I moved in August 1st.
She goes to school from your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, you became acquainted with Miss Hall, and there came a time shortly thereafter, uncross your arms, and there came a point shortly thereafter when you moved into her home.
In August, yes.
Of 2020. And you remained in her home until what month and year?
August of 2022.
And in what month and year did you regain custody of your daughter?
June of 2022. So
there was a period of 2 months when you and your daughter lived in Miss Hall's home.
You could say that, but...
Well, I'm saying that because I just asked you a question about timeline.
No, because me and Miss Hall was going through our dispute about this money, my daughter was staying with my grandma. I only brought my daughter there on certain occasions.
When I say you regained custody of your daughter, was that a court order?
Yes, I have it right here.
Just a second. Was the child removed by court order from your custody?
It was removed because the house...
Don't tell me because.
Yes,
it was yes.
Yes.
I have lots of things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Child was removed from your custody.
Because I didn't have nowhere to live at the time.
Was the child removed from your custody before you moved into the shelter?
She was removed because I was in the shelter.
Did you take her to the shelter?
No, I was not allowed to because there's no men.
So at that time,
female
did she go and live with your mother?
Of course.
Was that by court order?
No, it was
brought her to your mother.
Yes.
May I see the court order that involves custody, please? I'm not getting an answer.
This is the court order, and this is these two forms. Now, that court order is the current.
Shh. Okay, so the child was placed with the Commission of Social Services in Pennsylvania. And the child was placed in kinship foster care, which is a program that I am very familiar with the child's paternal grandmothers. So in June of this year, the child was returned to your custody. At some point in August of this year is when you and the defendants separated and you left the house. This is your claim. Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I don't want to go back to the year, Gimel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to...
I don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me.
Gerald McPherson, claims his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, wrongfully spent the money he gave her for rent.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I want you to look at me when you talk, not at the papers.
No, I was going to...
In what kind of gambling thing did you win money?
I betted on 25 games.
What 25 games?
NBA, college, hockey.
Okay, and you bet where?
On FanDuel. It's an app called FanDuel.
Okay, and you won?
Yes.
I don't understand the whole thing. I don't want to learn the whole thing. I don't care about the whole thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
Okay, $36,742, and after taxes, $26,889.
On what date?
So I won the bet on the 28th. It came into my account.
28th of what?
January.
Of what year?
This year.
And you had been living with Miss Hall for 2 years?
Prior, yes.
Okay, and you were working according to you all of that time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Were you paying any rent to Miss Hall?
I have receipts.
Yes, I want to see those. How much rent were you paying?
So when I met Miss Hall...
I don't want to go back to the year, Gimmel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to pay
I don't know. I want you to
rent.
be dishonest with me.
Half her rent is like $425, and she had me pay half the gas and half the electric and half the cable.
Her rent was $425?
No, it's $850. I had to split it. We're paying half and half.
Miss Hall?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I do customer service.
And who else lives in the apartment with you?
My children.
How old are they?
14 and 13.
How large is the apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom.
And the total rent is $850?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no subsidy involved?
No subsidy at all.
Okay. And you have a lease?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you charge, if anything, Mr. McPherson as rent?
$425.
Well, that doesn't quite sound fair, does it? Did she make a figure with you of $425?
I paid more than that. I paid $425. That's half of the rent. I paid half of the electric and half of the internet bill.
There are 4 people in the house.
Yes.
Right? Why is he paying for...
only
Why was he paying for half the rent?
Oh, my children don't work, and his child didn't work either.
His child wasn't with you?
The child came with us in June, but she had visitations on weekends.
I don't care if she has visitations. Your children live with you.
Yes.
They don't have to work. They're your children. They're not his responsibility. Okay, I just want to know where everybody's head is at. There came a point, Miss Hall, when Mr. McPherson gave you $6,000 in cash.
No, not in cash.
Check.
No, both of them was wired. One was directly wired into our Bank of America account.
What? Just a second. When?
The first transaction was on January 31st. The second transaction...
January 31st of?
This year. And the second transaction was the next day, February 1st. $12,000 total.
Do you acknowledge, Miss Hall, receiving $12,000 in your account from Mr. McPherson, or do I have to look at his records?
I do not acknowledge. He gave me $6,000 and $4,500.
$6,000 and $4,500, Mr. McPherson. Does that sound right?
No, it's not right, and I'm going to show you.
Let me see your bank record.
All right. Hey,
and
sir.
Let us assume that it's $6,000 and $4,500 that he gave you in this year, 2022.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Let us assume for the moment that you're correct, because you're suing for $6,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because the first initial $6,000 was 8 months' rent. That I'm not.
Let us assume that you are correct, that he gave you $6,000 and $4,500. I'm taking you at face value. In January and February of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the money for?
That he gave me?
Yes. The 2 different amounts of money.
Yes.
There's a $6,000 and a $4,500.
$4,500 was for me to pay my car note off. And
hey, just a second.
Go ahead.
Why would he pay your car note off?
He said he wanted to.
Oh, no. That's ridiculous. Miss Hall, let me just check.
Can I say something?
No.
He even wrote that on there for your car note.
No, you said in January he won a bet and cashed it out. A few days later, he gave me money via Cash App to catch up on his rent and as a thank you for helping him out. I don't see anything here about gift for a car note in your answer.
So he gave me the money for the car note, and as far as the Cash App money, he gave me money lots of times. So yes.
No, I'm talking about the $6,000, madam.
Yes.
Let us assume he gave you $4,500 to pay off your car note. That's what you said.
Correct.
What's the $6,000 for?
The $6,000 was for us to move.
For who to move?
Me and him.
Show me.
The $6,000?
Yeah, show me that there's proof. He says he gave you the money according to his complaint to hold for him.
Yes.
Shh. Just a second. Yeah, February 3rd, he gave you $6,000. This just says he gave it to you.
Yes.
And?
And he told me to hold it so we can move.
Well, you didn't move.
No,
you didn't. Shh. He told you to hold it for him so that you could all move.
No.
So who could move?
So me and him and our children could move.
Well, that's what I just said.
I apologize.
So that we can move.
Correct.
But you didn't move together.
Correct.
So you have to give him his money back. That's simple. Just a second. That's simple. If you say he gave you the money so that the two of you could move and that event never took place, but he in fact moved out, you owe him $6,000.
But then he agreed.
Just a second. That's an easy. Okay. Do I have to deal with anything else? Money for lost wages, rent, utilities? Forget it. He paid all of that with the $4,500 when he paid off your car note. Come on, let's get it together. Lost wages. What are the lost wages for?
But then I had to take off from work because of the PFA, and I had to take off from work to go file out the court and things like that. But in the midst of him saying the $6,000, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay all of his rent.
He paid off your car note. You owe him $6,000. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Well, I don't agree with the judge's decision. I don't think I owe him the money.
That's what women do.
Because he gave me a gift and he didn't pay rent.
I also spent $2,000 on her in gifts.
What's done is done.
I'm taking a break from women for quite some time now.
So I'm glad that the plaintiff's daughter didn't have to go into the larger foster care system and was able to stay with plaintiff's mother. But I was curious that if this was a temporary slip up and he wasn't going to be permanently without housing, why wouldn't he go with his daughter to his mother's house? I was surprised you didn't ask him that question.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's a curious question.
To me, it just seemed like it might have been a better situation to crash at your mom's house with your daughter
With
for
your
a while,
daughter.
but
I'm not sure whether I have that whole story because they continued the child in care for a period of time, at least for almost 2 years, because he didn't have custody of her while he was living with the defendant.
well, one easy part of the case was that he was owed his $6,000 back.
That's
all we had to deal with.
Yeah, that was easy. Once she got her hands on that $6,000 and he was no longer in the picture, it was hard for her to get.
Case 2111, Banks versus Mitchell. All parties, please step forward.
Queen Vanessa Banks is suing her former friend, Fulton Mitchell, for an unpaid loan and stolen money.
Miss Banks, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a city contractor for the city and county of San Francisco.
How long have you been working for the city of San Francisco?
30 years.
You a full-time employee?
No, I'm a contractor, so I'm used as needed.
Well, in the last month, how many days have you worked?
Like around 40 hours the whole month.
How do you support yourself?
I'm on disability.
How long have you been on disability?
Since roughly like around February of 2022.
When you applied for disability, were you originally rejected or did they accept your claim?
I was rejected 3 times, actually.
So when you started collecting in February of 2022, you got a big check for back disability.
Yes, ma'am.
I know my business. How much of a check did you get?
I got $7,000 the first time, and they just submitted me like $8,000 a month or 2 ago. And then there are some more coming. It ain't all came yet.
Mm-hmm. They advised you, because you were rejected, as you said, 2 or 3 times, that there would be a total amount coming to you. You got a letter from the administration.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And what is the total amount that they told you you would be receiving in increments?
I think it was like $18,000.
And you had a lawyer at the appeal.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you applied for disability, did you say that there was no kind of work that you could do? I'm jaundiced. I know that people put money in somebody else's bank when they want to hide it from the government, creditors, a spouse looking for support, all what I would call nefarious reasons to put money in somebody else's bank.
Queen Vanessa Banks claims her former friend, Fulton Mitchell, stole money from their shared bank account.
Now, when you applied for disability, did you say that there was no kind of work that you could do?
Well, actually...
No, not actually. They're giving you $18,000. They said that they should have taken your case when you first applied for disability. So they had to have found that you could not hold gainful employment. That's what it's all about when you get federal disability.
Right.
Right. So I want to know what this 40 hours a month that you worked last month as an independent contractor. What kind of independent contractor were you?
I actually sit on Zooms, and I am a consultant, so I'm on Zooms most of the time.
And when you're not on Zooms, where are you?
At home.
What do you consult about?
I am an urban consultant, so I work with various people that's trying to find out about urban living and mental health, basically working around mental health.
How are you paid?
They might mail
No,
a
not
check.
might.
They mail a check.
What do you do with that check?
I usually cash it at a store in the community.
You cash it. What is your hourly wage?
As a consultant?
Yeah.
I'm usually paid like $130 an hour.
And what's the amount of money you get from disability a month, not counting these extra payments for when they denied you disability?
$1,000.
So you get $1,000 a month plus $130 an hour times the last month you said was 40 hours. So you make $4,000 or $5,000 a month from your consulting job for the city.
No way.
Well, am I correct, Whitney, that Miss Banks said that she worked about 40 hours last month?
Can I explain something? Not
No.
all.
No.
She said around 40 hours the whole month.
Okay. Would you tell me what she says she earns an hour?
It's usually $130 an hour.
$5,200. And when you get the checks for these consulting things, you take them and you cash them. That's
Yes,
either a yes or a
ma'am.
no. Do you work as a sole independent contractor, or do you have an LLC or a corporation?
No, ma'am.
So the checks are made out to you?
Yes, ma'am.
As an independent contractor?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to pay your own taxes, so you're 1099 from all these people?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you declare on your taxes last year?
I didn't file taxes last year, ma'am.
Why not? You said you've been working in this capacity on and off for 30 years.
Because,
for the
ma'am,
city.
where I come from, a lot of the work is volunteer work considered, and you are given a stipend. And some of the work I do, sometimes I don't even get paid, but I still do the work.
Listen, you know exactly where I'm going. We're two savvy people. When you cash those checks, because this is what the case is about, for some reason, because I'm trying to figure out why somebody puts money into somebody else's bank account, because part of this case is about that. You and Mr. Mitchell became friends, maybe a little bit more than friends, I don't know. At some point, according to you, you gave him money to hold in his bank account because his bank account was closer to where you are and you didn't want to go on two buses to where your bank was. Am I getting that right? Is that what you...
No, ma'am.
Let's see. I'm telling you why I made these inquiries to you. I was struggling to find a way to get access to my money. I always took the bus to the bank, but during COVID, public transportation shut down. It was completely unreliable, and I was in a bind. This is what you write. When Fulton heard about my problem, he offered to hold my money for me in his bank. He said that he didn't keep any money in that account, so it would be perfect, because his bank was right where I worked. I only know of several reasons why strangers put money in somebody else's account. You know, I may have an account with Sarah. I may have an account with one of my other grandchildren. I have an account with my husband. But I've had a best friend for 70 years, another best friend for 30 years, and I would never think of putting money in their bank account because there are banks all over the place. I'm just telling you, you know, I'm jaundiced. I know that people put money in somebody else's bank when they want to hide it, when they want to hide it from the government, creditors, a spouse looking for support, a spouse looking for alimony, a contractor who has a judgment against them. All what I would call nefarious reasons to put money in somebody else's bank. But let us say that you did put money in this bank account, and you say that money was withdrawn. Your money was withdrawn from that account to pay his taxes. Is that what you're alleging?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How much was withdrawn from his account that only his name was on, or was your name on it too?
My name is on it too.
Oh, there we go. Now I can understand it why you might owe taxes. I don't know anything about his business, but I can certainly understand that you might. Did you receive notice that the IRS took money out of this bank account, which was then a joint bank account?
No, I did not.
So if her name was on it, it was a joint account.
It was not. It was my account, and I added her name to my
That's okay. That makes it a joint account.
Yes.
Okay, well, I didn't have that information in here because joint account is absolutely different. Joint account means that the money belongs to both of you. Now, what makes you think that the money that was taken out of the account was to pay his taxes?
Because I have proof.
I'd like to see it. What account is this? Whose money is that?
Mine.
Explain that to me. This is a deposit here for $988.68. What is that?
That's when the pandemic hit and the struggles started getting hard trying to get money. And being that me and him was business partners, that's when he decided to try to help me out.
You know, I neither have the time or the interest to hear about the nuances of this stuff because I don't have the wherewithal, either emotionally or structurally, to figure out the whole scam. I haven't figured it all out yet, but I'm beginning to figure it out. So you deposited $988 and then withdrew at some point in May. That was on June 9th. I don't have the rest of it here, but you withdrew $1,600 from that account on May 25th. Do you remember what that was for?
May 25th?
Yeah, May 25th, $1,600. June 3rd, tax levy, $2,711.
The May 25th is because that's my daughter's birthday, and I spent time with my daughter. And then the June 3rd tax levy is why I'm here with you today.
What kind of business were you in together with the defendant?
You want me to answer that?
No, you answer it. What
type of business were you together? He works for the city and county. I'm a grassroots organizer, so I work within his organization so that we can do things together.
That's not true.
Your Honor, I have proof. I do work with his organization. I'm putting on a Halloween event.
I don't care.
His logo
Let's understand each other. I don't care because something doesn't smell right for me. And if something doesn't smell right with this nose, it's usually accurate. Usually. You said you took out $1,000. When and for what purpose?
I took out the $1,000 and I gave it to Miss Banks.
That's not what you said.
What did I say, Miss Judy?
It's not what you said. It's not what you swore to.
Queen Vanessa Banks is suing her former friend, Fulton Mitchell, for an unpaid loan and stolen money.
When someone puts money in somebody else's bank account, it's because they're trying to somehow shield that money from some sort of scrutiny. If your only source of income, which you would like me to believe, is this $1,000 from disability and the $18,000 that you're going to get for retroactive disability.
She was on some other kind of services also. I don't know whether it was SSI or something. When she first came to me, she wanted me to hold the money and put it in my account because she didn't want it to mess up her money.
That's not true. That's not true, Your Honor. He started helping me in 2019. In 2020, he asked me for a loan to help one of his daughters of $1,900. We were both trying to start up a business. We didn't know the pandemic was going to come, Your Honor. We was trying to start up a business.
I've never tried to start up a business.
Just a second.
Your Honor, I got proof because he lying to you.
Just a second. I don't care that you were starting a business. It doesn't make any difference to me. It really doesn't make any difference to me. You had a joint account, and the IRS took money out of that joint account. Was that your tax debt?
I don't know.
The answer is you don't know. Okay. Well, this says that it was the levy from California Franchise Tax Board was against Fulton W. Mitchell.
That's me.
That's what it's...
I asked her to show me that. I said, prove it to me. No, she never showed me that ever.
Okay. So my question to you is, sir, because you have to pay your own taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? You would acknowledge that this bank account had only her funds in it?
No, it has my funds in there, too.
Show me any deposits that you made into this account.
Well, I had money in there way before I put her money into my account. It's been in my account for over 10, 15 years.
what I want to see, Mr. Fulton,
Yes.
is any place where you deposited $27.11 because that's what they took out.
No, I didn't deposit $27.11 into that account.
Ever?
No.
Okay, good. This responsibility is yours. You would acknowledge that it's yours?
Yes.
Okay, so that's $2,700, which you in fact owe her. She probably owes IRS or the state of California more money because I'm not sure that they know where all this money is going. Did you take any other money out of that account?
No, ma'am.
Yes, you did. You took out $1,000. You acknowledge you took out $1,000 by accident, you said, sir, and you said you paid it back.
She got it back.
Okay, well
That's
then
not
don't
true,
say,
Your Honor.
shh, don't speak. You got into enough trouble, right, so far. You said you took out $1,000. When and for what purpose?
I took out the $1,000 and I gave it to Miss Banks.
That's not what you said.
What did I say, Miss Judy?
It's not what you said. It's not what you swore to. You said, there was a time when I accidentally withdrew $1,000 from the account that belonged to Vanessa, but I paid her back in June 2022.
There you go.
I said, what do you mean, there you go? I said, when did you take money out of her account?
That was the only time I took the money out.
Well, tell me about it.
Vanessa started harassing me. She started showing up to my job and just doing all kind of stuff, so I was just trying to get rid of her.
And?
So I took the money out and gave it to her. And I'm
just a second. Put your hand down. Don't you understand what you signed?
Yeah.
You said I accidentally took money out of her account, but then I gave it back to her because if you accidentally took it out, it means it didn't belong to you. When did you accidentally take it out, and when did you give it back to her?
I took out the money, and the money was given to her. That was it. That was it. I was done with it.
Well,
I was done with her. I was done with all of it.
There was a time when I accidentally withdrew $1,000 from the account that belonged to Vanessa, but I paid that back in June 2022.
Those words are mixed up a little bit there.
That's what I read. That's your answer, sir. As for the rest of the money she claims I owe her, it's all a bunch of lies. I never took a $1,900 loan and don't owe money for the IRS. Well, you do owe money for the IRS because one of the things I think that everybody has to pay is their own tax levy and their own child support. You would acknowledge that.
I agree.
Okay, tell me about this loan of $1,900, Miss Banks.
Mr. Mitchell had fell into a lot of hardship in the pandemic, and he came to me and asked me, could I loan him $1,900 to help out one of his daughters? And I gave it to him, and he agreed to pay it back, and we was just like trying to handle business together. And I thought he was a friend.
Show me proof that you gave him $1,900.
It was cash, Your Honor. The $1,000 he's saying he handed me back in June, that was from the $1,900.
I'm not following you, madam. Are you saying that he in total owed you, forget the IRS, $2,900, $1,000 that he took in 19?
He asked for $1,900
Never asked
cash.
you for $1,900.
I gave him $1,900 in cash.
Not true.
Then he paid me back $1,000 in June of 2022.
If you have money in my account, why would I ask you for $1,900? I would just go in there and grab it. That makes no sense.
Just a second, why are you talking to her?
I'm sorry.
Where do you think you are?
I'm sorry, I apologize. She's never given me no $1,900. She's never given me anything in cash, period, ever.
I have proof.
I'm willing to look at it.
Yes, I told him that I needed to move forward with it, and if he don't give me what I need, I'll put it in writing. So
well, you
we
may
had to
put it in
talk.
writing. Well, you sent this to him, and it says acknowledgement of monetary debt in the amount of $4,600. You typed this up, and he never signed it.
No, he never signed it.
Well, then it's meaningless. You can type up anything. I can type up something that says I own all of Sarah's real estate. If she doesn't sign it, I don't own anything.
Well, that's where $1,000 came from, because he was trying to cover that.
Yeah. You know, somehow I think I'm dealing with, I'm not sure about one or two people who've managed to master the system. And
no, not at all.
I don't know. I don't know. All I know is if somebody is working
5 years,
just a second. Hey, just a second. There's a reason why she asked to be added to your bank account. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't look, because if you're a foolish man, what was the reason she gave you for wanting to have a bank account where you were the primary on that bank account? What was the reason she gave you?
She gave me the reason that she didn't want it to mess up her income.
That's not true.
Just a second. So she said, I don't want it to
She said she didn't want to put it in her name because she didn't want to mess up her income that she had coming in.
Her income from what?
Some kind of assistance. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Whatever. Anyway, got a nice windfall, $18,000. By the way, I have one other question for you. In your complaint, which you read and signed and swore to, Fulton heard about my problems with money and where to put it, and he offered to hold my money in his account. He said he doesn't keep any money in there, so it would be perfect, because his bank was right where I worked. Where was his bank, and where do you work?
I work in the community that I was born and raised in, which is Bayview.
Okay, I'm not going to get a straight answer. You owe her for her tax debt, nothing else, $2,700.
This court is adjourned.
That's it, you're done.
I'll watch her like every day.
It was fair.
I'm thankful that she saw what it was for what it was.
You know, she asked me to put some money in the account for her. I did.
I never had to harass him. We were business partners for 2 or 3 years.
I don't know if it was a business agreement or not.
Because I told him I want my money.
I'm just happy it's over with.
You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking that I wouldn't have had that information about Social Security disability unless Poppy was an administrative law judge with Social Security 40 years ago. And I remember exactly what the drill was. File, you rejected, you file, you rejected, and finally you have to hire a lawyer, and the lawyer gets a big chunk of the relief, and you get all your back payments. So I have a feeling I was dealing with two people who had a substantial skill set in how to negotiate and suck every dollar from the system, whether it was deserved or not.
अरे बोला ता चूड़ी कंगना राजा जानिया हो, अरे टूटा ता रोज रोज पिया बदानिया हो, टूटा ता रोज रोज पिया बदानिया। अरे बोला ता चूड़ी कंगना राजा जानिया हो, अरे टूटा ता रोज रोज पिया बदानिया हो। अब हाथ के मेहंदी हमरो छूटत बाटे, लाले लाले गलिया ओठ लालिया, पिया मोरे सुखत बाटे, राजा मोरे सुखत बाटे, पिया मोरे सुखत बाटे, राजा मोरे सुखत बाटे। रोआता से जिपे ओढ़ना बिछावना हो, अरे ताके कमरिया खेला खिलावना हो, ताके कमरिया खेला खिलावना। अरे रोआता से जिपे ओढ़ना बिछावना हो, अरे ताके कमरिया खेला खिलावना। और छाती से साटी के तकिया बितात बाटे, लाले लाले गलिया ओठ लालिया, पिया मोरे सुखत बाटे, राजा मोरे सुखत बाटे, पिया मोरे सुखत बाटे, राजा मोरे सुखत बाटे। होता बेकार कायल सोरहो सिंगार हो, हर तड़पेला जवानी अनुराग हो, तड़पेला जवानी अनुराग हो। होता बेकार कायल सोरहो सिंगार हो, हर तड़पेला जवानी अनुराग हो। गोरी बिपिन तोहरे प्यार से मनवा कुहकत बाटे लाले लाले गलिया ओठ लालिया पिया मोर सुखत बाटे राजा मोर सुखत बाटे पिया मोर सुखत बाटे राजा मोर सुखत बाटे